The morning fog hung thick over London's Heathrow Airport as Flight BA2084 from Geneva touched down on the rain-soaked runway. Among the tired passengers shuffling through the terminal, two figures moved with quiet purpose, their faces partially hidden beneath baseball caps and dark sunglasses. The woman pulled her coat collar higher, while the man beside her kept his head down, scanning the crowd with practiced awareness. Sarah Mitchell, a seasoned airport security officer with 20 years of experience, noticed them immediately. Something about their posture, the way they moved together, triggered her professional instincts. She had seen countless celebrities and dignitaries pass through these gates, but these two seemed different. They weren't trying to draw attention, yet they commanded it somehow. The couple approached passport control with documents in hand. The officer behind the counter, James Wellington, had processed thousands of travelers that morning alone. When he looked at the passports, his eyes widened slightly. The names read Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but the faces staring back at him from the photos were unmistakably familiar, even beneath their disguises. James glanced up at the real faces before him, then back at the passports. His heart began to race. These weren't just any travelers trying to slip back into the country unnoticed. These were the Prince and Princess of Wales, returning to British soil after what had been reported as an extended diplomatic mission in Switzerland. The official story had been carefully crafted by the Palace communications team. William and Kate were supposedly attending a series of private meetings with international environmental organizations, discussing climate initiatives and sustainable development projects. The public had been told they would return in 2 weeks, yet here they were, arriving 5 days early with false identities. James stamped their passports without a word, his training kicking in. He had signed confidentiality agreements that covered exactly these types of situations. As they walked away, he immediately picked up the secure phone line to notify his supervisor, who would then alert the appropriate authorities about the unexpected royal arrival. Meanwhile, Kate adjusted her handbag nervously as they moved through the terminal. The weight of the past week pressed heavily on her shoulders. What they had discovered in Switzerland would change everything, not just for their family, but potentially for the entire monarchy. The secret meetings hadn't been about environmental policy at all. William's jaw was set in determination as he guided them toward the exit. His mind raced with the implications of what they had learned. The documents hidden in Kate's bag contained information that could shake the very foundations of the British establishment. They had uncovered a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of government, involving financial irregularities that traced back decades. Dr. Heinrich Miller, the Swiss banker they had met with, had been nervous throughout their clandestine encounter. His hands shook as he handed over the encrypted files, his voice barely above a whisper as he explained what his investigation had revealed. Years of careful research had uncovered a network of offshore accounts and suspicious transactions that implicated several prominent British politicians and business leaders. The discovery had been accidental. William had been following up on what appeared to be a routine charity audit when inconsistencies began to emerge. Numbers didn't add up. Funds appeared to be diverted, and when he dug deeper, the trail led to Switzerland and Dr. Mueller's private investigation. Kate had insisted on accompanying him despite the obvious risks. As they sat in the dimly lit cafe in Geneva, listening to Dr. Muller's revelations, she felt the weight of their royal duties more heavily than ever before. They weren't just husband and wife anymore, or even just senior royals. They had become unwitting guardians of information that could bring down a government. The evidence pointed to a systematic embezzlement scheme involving funds meant for various charitable organizations and public projects. The stolen money had been laundered through a complex web of shell companies and eventually found its way into private accounts belonging to people William and Kate had known and trusted for years. As their black taxi wound through London's familiar streets, Kate noticed how different everything looked through the lens of their new knowledge. The grand buildings and historic landmarks that had always represented stability and tradition now seemed to hide darker secrets. She wondered how many other conspiracies might be lurking beneath the surface of British society. William's phone buzzed constantly, but he ignored it. The palace staff would be expecting their scheduled check-in, but he wasn't ready to report their early return. They needed time to process what they had learned and decide how to proceed. The evidence they carried could destroy careers, topple governments, and potentially damage the monarchy's reputation if handled incorrectly. The taxi driver, an elderly man named Frank, glanced in his rearview mirror occasionally. Something about his passengers seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place them. He had driven thousands of people over the years, including his fair share of celebrities trying to avoid recognition. These two had that same air of importance about them, the way they held themselves despite their obvious attempts at disguise. As they approached their destination, a safe house that William had arranged through his military contacts, Kate felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They were home, but home would never feel the same again. The burden of knowledge they carried would change how they viewed everything and everyone around them. The safe house was a modest townhouse in South London, far from the royal residences where they would normally stay. William had chosen it precisely because it was unremarkable, the kind of place where two people could disappear without drawing attention. The owner, a former SAS officer named David Thompson, had served with William during his military days and could be trusted completely. David met them at the door, his experienced eyes immediately assessing their state of mind. He could see the tension in their postures, the weight of whatever they were carrying. Without asking questions, he ushered them inside and ensured all security protocols were followed. The house was swept for surveillance devices daily, and its location was known only to a handful of trusted individuals. As night fell over London, William and Kate sat in the modest living room. The encrypted files spread across the coffee table before them. Tomorrow they would have to decide how to use this information, but tonight they simply held each other, understanding that their lives had changed forever in that small cafe in Geneva. Dawn broke gray and overcast across London as Kate stood at the small kitchen window of the safe house, watching the city come alive. She had barely slept, her mind churning over the revelations from Switzerland. The encrypted files lay spread across the dining table where William had been working since 4 a.m, cross-referencing names and dates with his own records. The scope of the conspiracy was staggering. What had begun as a routine audit of one of their charitable foundations had uncovered a web of corruption that stretched across multiple government departments, financial institutions, and even some of Britain's most respected charitable organizations. The stolen funds totaled nearly £50 million, money that should have gone to disadvantaged children, environmental projects, and veteran support programs. William looked up from the laptop screen, his eyes red with exhaustion. He had been trying to verify the information Dr. Muller had provided, using secure channels to access financial records and cross-check the suspicious transactions. Every document he examined only confirmed the worst of their fears. The conspiracy wasn't just real. It was far more extensive than they had initially believed. Kate brought him a cup of coffee and sat down beside him. The silence between them spoke volumes about the magnitude of what they faced. As senior members of the royal family, they had a duty to the British people, but the evidence they possessed implicated individuals at the highest levels of society. Taking action could destabilize the government and damage relationships that had taken decades to build. The phone rang, startling them both. David Thompson answered it in the hallway, his voice low and cautious. When he returned to the dining room, his expression was grave. Palace security had been making discreet inquiries about their whereabouts. Their absence had been noticed, and questions were being asked about their early return from Switzerland. William made a decision that would change everything. He picked up his secure phone and dialed a number he had memorized years ago, but never expected to use. Detective Chief Inspector Margaret Hayes of the Metropolitan Police's Economic Crime Unit answered on the third ring. She was one of the few people William trusted completely, having worked with her on previous investigations into charity fraud. When William identified himself, there was a moment of stunned silence on the other end of the line. DCI Hayes had been expecting a routine morning, not a call from the Prince of Wales requesting an urgent and confidential meeting. She agreed to come to the safe house within the hour, understanding the gravity of the situation from William's tone. While they waited, Kate reviewed the personal implications of their discovery. Several of the individuals named in the documents were people they had known for years, trusted advisors and family friends who had betrayed that trust in the most fundamental way. Lord Hampton, who had been William's mentor during his early years in public service, was listed as the recipient of over £2 million in diverted funds. The betrayal cut deep, But it was Sir Geoffrey Whitman's involvement that shocked them most. Whitman had been a close family friend for decades, someone who had advised 3 generations of royals on financial matters. His name appeared repeatedly throughout the documents, suggesting he had been instrumental in orchestrating the entire scheme. DCI Hayes arrived precisely on time, her unmarked vehicle pulling up to the safe house with practiced discretion. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Her reputation for integrity and thoroughness had made her the go-to investigator for high-profile financial crimes. When William and Kate presented the evidence, DCI Hayes studied each document with the methodical precision that had made her career. She asked pointed questions about the source of the information and the methods Dr. Mueller had used to obtain it. Her expression grew increasingly serious as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. The detective explained the legal complexities they faced. While the evidence was compelling, much of it had been obtained through unofficial channels that might not hold up in court. Building a prosecutable case would require additional investigation, surveillance, and the cooperation of international law enforcement agencies. Kate asked the question that had been haunting her since Geneva: how many people were suffering because of the stolen funds? DCI Hayes pulled out her own files, showing them reports of programs that had been canceled or severely reduced due to budget shortfalls. Children's hospitals had postponed critical renovations, environmental cleanup projects had been abandoned, and veteran support services had been cut back dramatically. The human cost of the conspiracy was overwhelming. Real people had been harmed by the greed and corruption of individuals who were supposed to be serving the public interest. Kate felt a renewed sense of purpose, understanding that their decision to act wasn't just about duty or justice, but about preventing further harm to vulnerable people. William outlined his proposed course of action. They would work with DCI Hayes to build an airtight legal case, while maintaining absolute secrecy about their investigation. The evidence would be presented to the Crown Prosecution Service only when they were confident of successful prosecutions. In the meantime, they would return to their royal duties, acting as if nothing had changed while secretly gathering additional evidence. DCI Hayes warned them about the personal risks they faced. The individuals involved in the conspiracy had significant power and resources at their disposal. If they discovered the investigation, they might take extreme measures to protect themselves. The detective recommended enhanced security protocols and suggested they limit their interactions with anyone who might be compromised. The meeting lasted 4 hours, during which they established secure communication protocols and developed a timeline for the investigation. DCI Hayes would begin building her team carefully, selecting only officers whose loyalty and discretion were beyond question. The investigation would be compartmentalized, with different teams working on separate aspects of the case to minimize the risk of leaks. As DCI Hayes prepared to leave, she shook hands with both William and Kate, acknowledging the courage it had taken to bring this information forward. She understood the position they were in, caught between their loyalty to the Crown and their duty to the British people. Her final words were both a promise and a warning. Justice would be served, but the road ahead would be dangerous and difficult. After the detective left, William and Kate sat in the gathering dusk, processing the weight of their commitment. They had crossed a line from which there was no return. Their investigation would either expose one of the largest corruption scandals in British history or destroy their own credibility and position within the royal family. Kate reached for William's hand, their fingers intertwining as they faced an uncertain future together. Tomorrow they would return to their public roles, smiling and waving as if nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, they would be conducting a secret investigation that could reshape the very foundations of British society. 3 days had passed since their clandestine meeting with DCI Hayes, and William and Kate had successfully returned to their official royal residence without raising suspicion. Their staff welcomed them back from what they believed had been an extended diplomatic mission in Switzerland, none the wiser about the explosive information their employers now carried. The morning routine at Kensington Palace proceeded as normal, with the usual briefings on upcoming engagements, charitable commitments, and state functions. Kate sat through a meeting about a children's hospital fundraising gala, maintaining her composure while knowing that millions of pounds meant for similar causes had been stolen by people in this very room. Private Secretary James Morrison reviewed the week's schedule with his customary efficiency, unaware that his name appeared in several of the Swiss documents as a facilitator of suspicious transactions. Kate watched his familiar gestures and professional demeanor, wondering how long he had been involved in the conspiracy and whether his loyalty to their family had ever been genuine. William excused himself from the morning briefings, claiming he needed to review environmental policy documents for an upcoming speech. Instead, he made his way to his private study where he had established a secure communication line with DCI Hayes. The detective had been working around the clock to verify the Swiss evidence and had made several disturbing discoveries. The investigation had revealed that the corruption network extended beyond financial theft into areas of national security. Some of the diverted funds had been used to purchase influence with foreign governments, potentially compromising Britain's diplomatic relationships and intelligence operations. The implications were staggering, suggesting that the conspiracy had been operating for over 15 years. DCI Hayes reported that surveillance had been established on several key suspects, including Sir Geoffrey Whitman and Lord Hampton. Initial observations confirmed unusual patterns of behavior, secret meetings in unexpected locations, and communications with known money laundering operations. The detective was building a comprehensive picture of how the network operated and who was involved. Meanwhile, Kate had begun her own subtle investigation within the royal household. She carefully reviewed financial records for their charitable foundations, looking for patterns that matched what Dr. Mueller had shown them in Geneva. Her background in art history had taught her to notice details that others might miss, and she applied these skills to analyzing the complex financial documents. What she discovered made her stomach turn. The theft hadn't been limited to external organizations. Funds from their own charitable work had been diverted as well. Money donated by ordinary British citizens to support causes they cared about had been stolen by people who had sworn to protect and serve the crown. The afternoon brought an unexpected challenge when Sir Geoffrey Whitman requested a private meeting with William. The elderly advisor had been a fixture in royal circles for decades, his white hair and distinguished bearing inspiring trust and respect. Kate watched from the window as his familiar Bentley pulled up to the palace, knowing that this man had betrayed everything he claimed to represent. William met with Sir Geoffrey in the formal drawing room, maintaining his usual respectful demeanor while studying the man for signs of deception. The conversation began with routine matters, discussions about upcoming state visits and policy recommendations. But William noticed subtle changes in Sir Geoffrey's behavior, a nervousness that hadn't been there before. Sir Geoffrey began probing carefully about William's recent trip to Switzerland, asking questions that seemed innocent but felt calculated. He mentioned hearing rumors about meetings with financial experts and wondered if William had uncovered anything interesting during his environmental consultations. The questions confirmed William's worst suspicions about how much the conspiracy members knew. Kate joined them for tea, her actress training from university drama productions, helping her maintain a facade of normalcy. She chatted about their charitable work and upcoming public engagements while watching Sir Geoffrey's reactions carefully. When she mentioned plans to audit their foundation finances, she caught a flash of panic in his eyes before he quickly recovered his composure. The meeting lasted 2 hours, during which William and Kate gathered valuable intelligence about how the conspiracy operated. Sir Geoffrey revealed, probably without realizing it, that there were regular meetings between certain individuals who were supposedly working on separate projects. He also mentioned concerns about increased scrutiny from financial regulators, suggesting the network was feeling pressure from multiple directions. After Sir Geoffrey left, William immediately called DCI Hayes with an encrypted phone to report the conversation. The detective was particularly interested in the references to regular meetings and suggested that surveillance teams might be able to identify other conspiracy members by monitoring these gatherings. That evening, Kate attended a charity dinner for children's cancer research, one of her most cherished causes. As she moved through the crowd of donors and supporters, she was struck by the genuine commitment and sacrifice these people made to help sick children. The contrast with the greed and corruption she had uncovered made her more determined than ever to see justice done. During her speech at the dinner, Kate spoke passionately about the importance of ensuring that charitable donations reached their intended recipients. Her words carried a deeper meaning that only she and William understood, but the audience responded with enthusiasm to her apparent dedication to transparency and accountability. Lord Hampton was among the attendees that evening, his presence adding another layer of complexity to the situation. Kate watched him during the dinner, noting how he interacted with other guests and whether he seemed aware of their investigation. His behavior appeared normal, but she noticed he avoided making eye contact with her throughout the evening. The breakthrough came late that night when DCI Hayes called with urgent news. Her surveillance teams had observed a clandestine meeting between several conspiracy members at a private club in Mayfair. The gathering included not only Sir Geoffrey and Lord Hampton, but also 3 government ministers and 2 prominent business leaders whose names hadn't appeared in the original Swiss documents. The detective had managed to obtain partial audio recordings of the meeting, revealing discussions about damage control and the need to accelerate certain financial transactions. There were references to a timeline that suggested the conspiracy members were planning to complete their operations and disappear within weeks. William and Kate realized they were running out of time. If the conspiracy members succeeded in covering their tracks and fleeing the country, justice might never be served, and the stolen funds would be lost forever. They made the difficult decision to accelerate their own timeline, even though it meant taking greater personal risks. DCI Hayes outlined a plan that would require William and Kate to attend a specific social function where several conspiracy members would be present. They would wear concealed recording devices and try to gather evidence that could be used in court. The operation was dangerous because any suspicious behavior could expose their investigation and put them in immediate danger. As they prepared for what could be their most crucial mission, William and Kate understood that their next moves would determine not only the success of the investigation, but potentially their own survival. The conspiracy had already demonstrated its reach and ruthlessness, and they were about to walk directly into the heart of it. The weight of their secret pressed down on them as they tried to maintain their public personas while preparing for a confrontation that could change British history. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they held each other close, drawing strength from their partnership as they faced an uncertain and dangerous future together. The annual Royal Geographic Society Gala was one of London's most prestigious events, attracting influential figures from politics, business, and academia. As William and Kate prepared for the evening, they knew this would be their most dangerous mission yet. DCI Hayes had confirmed that at least 6 conspiracy members would be attending, including Sir Geoffrey Whitman and Lord Hampton. Kate adjusted the tiny recording device concealed within her diamond brooch, a wedding gift from the Queen that no one would think to examine closely. The technology was so advanced that even palace security scanners wouldn't detect it. William's device was hidden in his cufflinks, equally invisible but capable of capturing conversations from several feet away. Their driver, Detective Sergeant Collins working undercover, briefed them during the journey to the Royal Albert Hall. Additional surveillance teams were already in position around the venue, and backup officers were stationed throughout the building, disguised as waitstaff and security personnel. DCI Hayes herself would be present as a guest, her cover story being her recent promotion within the Metropolitan Police. The grand entrance to the Royal Albert Hall buzzed with activity as London's elite arrived for the evening. Kate smiled and waved at the gathered photographers, her public persona masking the anxiety churning in her stomach. Every face in the crowd was a potential threat now. Every conversation might hold the key to unraveling the conspiracy. Inside the magnificent venue, William and Kate circulated among the guests with practiced ease. They had attended hundreds of similar events over the years, but tonight felt different. Every handshake and polite conversation carried the weight of their secret investigation. They were walking among people who had betrayed the public trust on a massive scale. Sir Geoffrey approached them within the first hour, his usual charming demeanor intact. He complimented Kate on her dress and engaged William in conversation about upcoming environmental legislation. But beneath the surface pleasantries, Kate detected an underlying tension in his voice. His questions about their recent activities seemed more pointed than casual social inquiry. Lord Hampton joined their conversation, creating the perfect opportunity for William and Kate to observe the dynamics between 2 key conspiracy members. The men's interaction revealed subtle signs of a deeper relationship than their public personas suggested. Small gestures, knowing glances, and carefully coded language indicated they were accustomed to communicating in ways that wouldn't attract attention. As the evening progressed, Kate excused herself to visit the ladies' room, actually following a predetermined route that would take her past a private meeting room where DCI Hayes had observed suspicious activity. Through the partially open door, she glimpsed three men in intense discussion, their voices low but their body language suggesting disagreement about something urgent. One of the men was Marcus Thornfield, a prominent banker whose name had appeared frequently in the Swiss documents. Kate had never met him personally, but his reputation as a financial innovator had made him a respected figure in London society. Seeing him in what was clearly a clandestine meeting confirmed his role in the conspiracy. William, meanwhile, had positioned himself near the bar where several government ministers were gathering. His military training had taught him to read people's behavior and body language, skills that proved invaluable as he observed their interactions. The ministers seemed nervous, frequently checking their phones and glancing around, the room as if watching for something or someone. The breakthrough moment came when Kate overheard a conversation between Sir Geoffrey and a woman she didn't recognize. The woman, speaking with a slight accent that might have been Eastern European, mentioned concerns about bank transfers and the need to expedite certain operations. Sir Geoffrey's response included references to Swiss accounts and timeline pressures that directly correlated with Dr. Muller's information. DCI Hayes, posing as a police liaison for the event, managed to position herself near Lord Hampton's table during dinner. She observed him receiving what appeared to be an encrypted text message that caused visible agitation. His subsequent whispered conversation with Marcus Thornfield included phrases about contingency, plans and exit strategies that suggested the conspiracy was preparing for exposure. The formal presentations began after dinner, with speeches about geographic exploration and scientific discovery. Kate found it deeply ironic that an event celebrating human achievement and knowledge was being used as cover for criminal activity. As she applauded the speakers, she wondered how many other prestigious gatherings had been corrupted by hidden agendas. During the presentation, William noticed several guests leaving early, including three individuals whose names appeared in the Swiss documents. Their departure seemed coordinated rather than coincidental, suggesting a prearranged signal or timeline. He discreetly photographed them with his phone, images that would later help DCI Hayes identify additional conspiracy members. The evening's most crucial moment came during the reception when Kate accidentally bumped into Marcus Thornfield, causing him to drop his phone. As she helped him retrieve it, she noticed an open text message that included bank account numbers and what appeared to be transfer amounts. The brief glimpse provided vital information that could help trace the movement of stolen funds. Sir Geoffrey's behavior became increasingly erratic as the evening wore on. He seemed to be watching William and Kate more closely than necessary, his conversations with them probing for information about their recent activities and future plans. When Kate mentioned their upcoming charity audit, she saw genuine fear flash across his face before he recovered his composure. The conspiracy members began gathering in small groups throughout the venue, their conversations clearly coordinated despite their attempts to appear casual. DCI Hayes observed at least 3 separate meetings, each involving different combinations of suspects but following similar patterns of behavior. As the evening wound down, Lord Hampton approached William for what appeared to be a casual goodbye conversation. However, his words carried veiled threats disguised as friendly concern. He mentioned the importance of loyalty and discretion in public service, warning about the dangers faced by those who might interfere with important national interests. Kate felt a chill as she realized how much the conspiracy members suspected about their investigation. The evening had provided crucial evidence, but it had also revealed that their cover might be blown. The recording devices had captured incriminating conversations, but they had also exposed themselves to significant personal danger. The drive back to Kensington Palace was tense, with Detective Sergeant Collins taking a circuitous route to ensure they weren't being followed. DCI Hayes had already confirmed that several conspiracy members had remained at the venue after William and Kate left, suggesting they were holding an emergency meeting to discuss the evening's events. Back at the palace, William and Kate immediately transferred the recordings to DCI Hayes through secure channels. The evidence they had gathered was substantial, providing direct proof of the conspiracy's operation and confirming the identities of additional members. However, they also realized that their investigation had entered a new and more dangerous phase. As they prepared for bed, Kate noticed increased security activity around the palace grounds. DCI Hayes had quietly enhanced their protection detail without explanation, but the implications were clear. The conspiracy members now viewed them as a direct threat, and the stakes had escalated beyond financial fraud into potential personal harm. William held Kate close as they tried to process the evening's events. They had succeeded in gathering crucial evidence, but they had also painted targets on their backs. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as DCI Hayes worked to build prosecutable cases while ensuring their safety. The investigation was approaching its climax, but the most dangerous phase was yet to come. Dawn had barely broken when DCI Hayes arrived at Kensington Palace with news that would change everything. Her usually composed demeanor showed cracks of urgency as palace security escorted her to William and Kate's private quarters. The recordings from the previous evening had yielded far more than expected, revealing the conspiracy's most dangerous secret yet. The enhanced audio analysis had uncovered references to Operation Britannia, a code name for what appeared to be an assassination plot. The conspiracy members weren't just stealing money. They were planning to eliminate anyone who threatened their network. The targets included several government whistleblowers, 2 investigative journalists, and, most shocking of all, William and Kate themselves. Kate's hands trembled as she reviewed the transcripts. Marcus Thornfield's voice, captured clearly on her recording device, discussed timeline acceleration and permanent solutions with chilling casualness. Sir Geoffrey's responses indicated that arrangements were already being made, with references to overseas contacts and untraceable methods that left no doubt about their intentions. William immediately called for an emergency security briefing, bringing together the heads of Royal Protection, MI5, and the Metropolitan Police's Counter-Terrorism Unit. The meeting took place in the palace's most secure conference room, its walls lined with technology that could block any electronic surveillance attempts. DCI Hayes presented the evidence to the assembled security chiefs, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. The conspiracy had evolved from financial fraud into a criminal enterprise willing to commit murder to protect itself. The stolen funds had been used not only for personal enrichment, but also to finance a network of international criminals capable of carrying out sophisticated operations. Commander Sarah Fletcher of the Royal Protection Unit outlined immediate security enhancements for William and Kate. Their movements would be restricted, their public appearances limited, and their personal staff subjected to enhanced background checks. The palace would essentially become a fortress while the investigation reached its conclusion. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source. Dr. Heinrich Müller, the Swiss banker who had provided the original evidence, contacted William through encrypted channels with urgent additional information. Someone had attempted to break into his Geneva office overnight, and he feared for his safety. More importantly, he had discovered files that revealed the conspiracy's complete organizational structure. William and Kate made the difficult decision to return to Switzerland immediately, despite the obvious dangers. Dr. Müller's new evidence could provide the final pieces needed to dismantle the entire network, but it had to be retrieved before the conspiracy members realized what he possessed. DCI Hayes argued against the trip, but William insisted that ending the threat permanently was worth the risk. The journey to Geneva was conducted under maximum security, with William and Kate traveling on separate flights using different identities. British intelligence operatives were positioned throughout Switzerland, while Swiss authorities provided additional protection for Dr. Müller. The coordination required between multiple agencies demonstrated the international scope of the conspiracy. Dr. Müller met them at a safe house outside Geneva, his nervous demeanor reflecting the pressure he had been under since their last meeting. The new documents he presented revealed the conspiracy's full reach, including connections to organized crime syndicates, corrupt officials in multiple countries, and a sophisticated money laundering operation that spanned 3 continents. Most shocking was the discovery that the conspiracy had been planning Operation Britannia for months. with William and Kate identified as primary targets due to their charitable work and potential to uncover financial irregularities. The assassination plot wasn't a panicked response to their investigation. It was a calculated decision made long before they discovered the conspiracy's existence. The documents also revealed the identity of the conspiracy's true leader, someone who had remained hidden throughout their investigation. Professor Elizabeth Harrington, a respected economist and government advisor, had been orchestrating the entire operation from behind the scenes. Her public reputation for integrity had provided perfect cover for criminal activities that had devastated countless charitable organizations. Kate studied Professor Harrington's profile with growing amazement at the woman's audacity. She had written books about ethical financial management, while simultaneously stealing millions from the causes she claimed to support. Her academic credentials and government connections had made her virtually untouchable, allowing the conspiracy to operate with impunity for over a decade. The evidence Dr. Mueller provided included recorded conversations between Professor Harrington and various conspiracy members, revealing the sophisticated nature of their operation. They had infiltrated multiple government departments, charitable organizations, and financial institutions, creating a web of corruption that seemed almost impossible to unravel. William realized that the conspiracy's reach explained many puzzling incidents from recent years. Charitable projects that had failed unexpectedly, government policies that seemed to benefit specific interests, and financial irregularities that had been dismissed as bureaucratic errors were all part of a coordinated criminal enterprise. The return journey to London was even more dangerous than their departure. Intelligence reports indicated that the conspiracy members were actively searching for them, having discovered their absence from the palace. Private security firms with questionable ethics had been hired to locate and monitor their movements, turning their trip into a high-stakes chase across Europe. DCI Hayes coordinated their safe return through a complex operation involving multiple law enforcement agencies. Decoy vehicles, false flight plans, and coordinated disinformation campaigns were used to confuse potential threats while ensuring William and Kate reached British soil safely with the crucial evidence. Back in London, the evidence was immediately analyzed by teams of forensic accountants, intelligence analysts, and legal experts. The scope of the conspiracy was breathtaking, involving not just the theft of charitable funds but also tax evasion, money laundering, bribery of public officials, and now conspiracy to commit murder. Professor Harrington's arrest was planned for the following morning, along with simultaneous raids on the homes and offices of 17 other conspiracy members. The operation would be the largest financial crime bust in British history, involving over 200 officers and requiring coordination with law enforcement agencies in 12 countries. Kate spent the evening reviewing victim impact statements that had been prepared for the prosecution. The human cost of the conspiracy was staggering, with thousands of people affected by canceled programs, reduced services, and diverted resources. Children's hospitals had been forced to delay treatments, environmental cleanup projects had been abandoned, and veterans' support services had been cut back dramatically. William worked with legal experts to prepare his testimony for the upcoming trials. As key witnesses to the conspiracy's operation and victims of its assassination plot, their evidence would be crucial for securing convictions. The pressure was enormous, knowing that any mistakes in the legal process could allow dangerous criminals to escape justice. As they prepared for bed, Kate reflected on how much their lives had changed since that routine charity audit first revealed suspicious financial transactions. They had uncovered a criminal conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of British society, survived multiple attempts on their lives, and gathered evidence that would reshape public trust in institutions for years to come. Tomorrow would bring the culmination of their investigation, as law enforcement moved to arrest the conspiracy members. But tonight they held each other close, understanding that their actions had not only protected their own lives, but potentially saved countless others who would have been harmed by the criminal network's continued operation. The coordinated arrests began at precisely 5:30 in the morning, with teams of officers simultaneously striking locations across London and several other British cities. William and Kate watched the operation unfold from the secure command center at New Scotland Yard, where multiple screens displayed live feeds from arrest sites and communications between the various law enforcement teams. Professor Elizabeth Harrington was arrested at her elegant Belgravia townhouse as she prepared for what she thought would be another normal day of maintaining her public facade. The footage showed her genuine shock as armed officers presented the warrant, her composed academic demeanor crumbling as she realized the extent of the evidence against her. For someone who had orchestrated such an elaborate criminal enterprise, she seemed remarkably unprepared for the possibility of being caught. Sir Geoffrey Whitman attempted to flee when officers arrived at his country estate, but was apprehended trying to board a private helicopter that would have taken him to a waiting yacht. His escape plan revealed the sophisticated preparation the conspiracy members had made for this possibility, including offshore accounts, false identities, and international safe houses that would have made prosecution nearly impossible. Lord Hampton's arrest proved most dramatic when officers discovered him in the process of destroying evidence in his home office. Thousands of documents were being fed into an industrial shredder when the raid began, but investigators managed to save enough material to confirm his central role in coordinating the conspiracy's financial operations. His desperate attempt to eliminate evidence only strengthened the case against him. Marcus Thornfield, the banker whose recorded conversations had provided crucial evidence of the assassination plot, was arrested at London City Airport, attempting to board a flight to Switzerland. His luggage contained multiple passports, large amounts of cash in various currencies, and encrypted devices that investigators hoped would reveal additional details about the conspiracy's international connections. DCI Hayes coordinated the operation with military precision, ensuring that each arrest was timed to prevent conspiracy members from warning each other or destroying additional evidence. The simultaneous nature of the raids was crucial, as any delay could have allowed key figures to escape or valuable information to be lost. Kate found herself holding her breath as she watched James Morrison, their former private secretary, being led away in handcuffs from his apartment. The betrayal by someone so close to their daily lives felt deeply personal, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. His access to their financial records and charitable operations had made him an invaluable asset to the criminal network. The searches of various properties yielded a treasure trove of evidence that exceeded investigators' expectations. Hidden safes contained additional financial records. Encrypted computers held detailed correspondence between conspiracy members, and several locations yielded physical evidence of the assassination plot, including weapons, surveillance equipment, and detailed plans of royal residences. William was particularly struck by the discovery of extensive surveillance materials at Professor Harrington's residence. The conspiracy had been monitoring him and Kate for months, photographing their movements, documenting their routines, and identifying vulnerabilities in their security arrangements. The level of planning involved in the assassination plot was far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. As news of the arrests began to leak to the media, William and Kate prepared for the public relations challenges that would inevitably follow. The scandal would dominate headlines for weeks, potentially damaging public confidence in charitable organizations and government institutions. Their communications team worked frantically to develop messages that would reassure the public while avoiding interference with ongoing legal proceedings, and the international dimensions of the investigation became clear as additional arrests were made in Switzerland, Monaco, and the Cayman Islands. The conspiracy's money laundering operation had involved banks and shell companies across multiple jurisdictions, requiring unprecedented cooperation between law enforcement agencies. The complex web of financial transactions would take months to fully unravel. Dr. Heinrich Miller's safety remained a primary concern of Swiss authorities, provided enhanced protection for the banker, whose courage had made the entire investigation possible. His decision to come forward despite obvious personal risks had not only exposed the conspiracy, but potentially saved William and Kate's lives. Without his evidence, the assassination plot might have succeeded before anyone understood the scope of the criminal enterprise. The legal challenges ahead were daunting, with prosecutors preparing cases that would likely take years to resolve fully. The complexity of the financial crimes, the international nature of the conspiracy, and the high-profile defendants would require unprecedented resources and coordination. Every aspect of the prosecution would be scrutinized, by defense attorneys seeking any possible weakness or procedural error. Kate reflected on the irony that their investigation had begun with concerns about routine, charitable accounting irregularities and had evolved into uncovering one of the largest criminal conspiracies in British history. The conspiracy members had underestimated their determination and their willingness to pursue justice regardless of personal cost. The human impact of the conspiracy continued to emerge as investigators contacted victims whose lives had been affected by the stolen funds, families whose children had been denied medical treatments, environmental groups whose projects had been canceled, and veterans whose support services had been eliminated. All deserved to know that justice was being pursued on their behalf. William spoke with several victim families during the afternoon, calls that reinforced his commitment to seeing the prosecution through to completion. A mother whose disabled son had been denied essential therapy because of budget cuts broke down in tears when she learned that the money had been stolen rather than legitimately unavailable. Her pain reminded him that this investigation was about more than financial crime. It was about restoring faith in the institutions that people depended upon. As evening approached, DCI Hayes briefed William and Kate on the day's successes and the challenges that lay ahead. All primary targets had been arrested, substantial evidence had been secured, and international cooperation was proceeding smoothly. However, the complexity of the cases meant that trials might not begin for at least 18 months, requiring sustained commitment from everyone involved. The detective also warned about potential security concerns that would persist throughout the legal process. Other criminal organizations with connections to the conspiracy might seek revenge, and the arrested individuals might attempt to intimidate witnesses or interfere with the prosecution. William and Kate's security arrangements would need to remain enhanced for the foreseeable future. Media coverage of the arrests dominated evening news broadcasts, with journalists struggling to comprehend the full scope of the conspiracy. Initial reports focused on the financial aspects of the crimes, but gradually the more sinister elements began to emerge. References to assassination plots and international criminal networks transformed what had seemed like a white-collar crime story into something far more dramatic and disturbing. Kate watched the news coverage with mixed emotions, proud of their role in bringing criminals to justice but saddened by the damage that had been done to public trust. The conspiracy had operated for over a decade, stealing millions of pounds that should have helped vulnerable people and corrupting institutions that were supposed to serve the public interest. As they prepared for bed at the end of this historic day, William and Kate understood that their ordeal was far from over. They would spend months, possibly years, working with prosecutors to ensure successful convictions. Their testimony would be crucial, their credibility essential, and their commitment unwavering despite the personal costs involved. The arrests marked a turning point in their investigation, but the real work of seeking justice was just beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as defense attorneys began developing strategies to protect their clients. But tonight they could take satisfaction in knowing that a dangerous criminal conspiracy had been exposed, and its leaders were finally facing the consequences of their actions. 18 months after the dramatic arrests, William and Kate sat in the witness box of the Old Bailey, facing the most challenging testimony of their lives. The trial of Professor Elizabeth Harrington and her co-conspirators had captivated public attention for weeks, with every detail of the massive fraud and assassination plot being scrutinized by media, legal experts, and ordinary citizens who had been betrayed by people they trusted. The courtroom was packed with journalists, legal observers, and family members of victims whose lives had been devastated by the conspiracy. Kate looked across the room at the defendants, noting how different they appeared from the confident, respected figures she had once known. Prison uniforms had replaced designer clothing, and their faces showed the strain of months in custody awaiting trial. William testified first, his military bearing evident as he recounted the events that had led to their investigation. His voice remained steady as he described the routine charity audit that had first revealed suspicious financial transactions, the dangerous journey to Switzerland to meet Dr. Heinrich Müller, and the discovery of evidence that exposed the full scope of the criminal enterprise. The prosecution presented the Swiss banker's evidence methodically, showing the court exactly how the conspiracy had operated across multiple jurisdictions, bank records, encrypted communications, and surveillance footage painted a picture of sophisticated criminal organization that had operated with impunity for over a decade. Kate's testimony focused on the human impact of the conspiracy, describing the children's hospitals that had been forced to cancel treatments, the environmental projects that had been abandoned, and the veterans' programs that had been eliminated due to stolen funding. Her voice broke as she recounted conversations with victim families, parents whose children had suffered because money meant to help them had been diverted into criminal accounts. Professor Harrington's defense team attempted to portray her as a misguided academic who had been manipulated by more sophisticated criminals, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Recorded conversations revealed her as the conspiracy's mastermind, someone who had used her reputation and government connections to orchestrate massive theft while maintaining a public facade of integrity and charitable concern. The assassination plot received particular attention during the trial, with security experts testifying about the sophisticated planning involved and the serious threat it had posed to William and Kate's lives. Weapons, surveillance equipment, and detailed intelligence about royal security arrangements demonstrated the conspiracy's willingness to commit murder to protect their criminal enterprise. Sir Geoffrey Whitman's attempted escape had provided prosecutors with additional evidence of guilt, while his desperate destruction of documents only reinforced the case against him. His defense attorney struggled to explain away years of financial records that clearly showed his central role in coordinating the conspiracy's operations. Lord Hampton's trial revealed the extent to which respected establishment figures had been corrupted by greed. His position had given him access to sensitive government information that had been used to facilitate the conspiracy's operations, representing a betrayal of public trust that went far beyond simple financial crime. Marcus Thornfield's banking expertise had been crucial to the conspiracy's success, allowing stolen funds to be laundered through complex international transactions that had initially appeared legitimate. His recorded discussions about the assassination plot had provided some of the most damning evidence against the entire network. The trials continued for 8 months, with each defendant facing multiple charges including fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and terrorism-related offenses. The complexity of the international financial crimes required expert testimony from banking specialists, forensic accountants, and intelligence analysts who helped the jury understand how the conspiracy had operated. Kate found the legal process emotionally exhausting, reliving the fear and tension of their investigation while facing aggressive cross-examination from defense attorneys seeking to discredit their testimony. The defense strategy seemed designed to portray them as privileged royals who had misunderstood ordinary business practices, but the evidence was too overwhelming to be dismissed so easily. The verdicts came on a cold February morning, with crowds gathered outside the Old Bailey waiting to hear the results. Professor Elizabeth Harrington was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 25 years in prison, reflecting both the severity of her crimes and her role as the conspiracy's leader. The judge's sentencing remarks emphasized the devastating impact her actions had on vulnerable people who depended on charitable support. Sir Geoffrey Whitman received 20 years, while Lord Hampton was sentenced to 18 years for his role in facilitating the conspiracy through his government connections. Marcus Thornfield's sentence of 15 years reflected his cooperation with investigators after his arrest, though his involvement in the assassination plot ensured substantial prison time. The other conspiracy members received sentences ranging from 8 to 12 years, with the court emphasizing that their respected positions in society had made their crimes particularly damaging to public trust. The total value of the stolen funds was estimated at over £80 million, money that would be recovered and returned to the legitimate charitable causes that had been robbed. Dr. Heinrich Miller was recognized by the court for his courage in exposing the conspiracy, with the judge noting that his willingness to come forward had not only brought criminals to justice but potentially saved lives. The Swiss banker had faced significant personal risks by providing evidence, and his actions demonstrated the importance of individual conscience in fighting corruption. The media coverage of the sentencing was extensive, with editorial writers examining how such a sophisticated criminal enterprise had operated undetected for so long. Questions were raised about oversight of charitable organizations, government financial controls, and the systems designed to prevent exactly this type of Corruption. William and Kate used the attention to advocate for stronger protections, for charitable funding and enhanced transparency requirements for organizations handling public donations. Their experience had given them unique insights into how criminal networks could exploit weaknesses in financial oversight systems. The recovery of stolen funds began immediately after the convictions, with forensic accountants working to trace money through complex international transactions. While not all funds could be recovered due to the sophisticated laundering operations, significant amounts were returned to the charitable organizations and government programs that had been robbed. Kate personally visited several hospitals and schools that received recovered funding, witnessing firsthand how the returned money was being used to help vulnerable people. A children's cancer ward that had been forced to delay expansion was finally able to complete construction, while environmental cleanup projects that had been abandoned were resumed with restored funding. The conspiracy's exposure led to significant reforms in financial oversight of charitable organizations and government programs. New auditing requirements, enhanced reporting standards, and improved coordination between regulatory agencies were implemented to prevent similar crimes in the future. William and Kate's relationship had been strengthened by their shared experience of facing danger and seeking justice together. The investigation had tested their partnership in ways they never could have imagined, but their commitment to each other and to their duty had never wavered. As they walked through Kensington Gardens on a sunny spring morning, 6 months after the final convictions, Kate reflected on how much their lives had changed since that routine charity audit had first revealed suspicious transactions. They had uncovered one of the largest criminal conspiracies in British history, survived multiple attempts on their lives, and helped bring dangerous criminals to justice. The experience had also deepened their understanding of their role as senior royals and their responsibility to protect the British people from those who would exploit positions of trust for personal gain. Their investigation had demonstrated that courage and determination could triumph over corruption, but only with the support of dedicated professionals like DCI Hayes and Dr. Muller, who were willing to risk everything for justice. Their secret had been revealed to the world through the trial proceedings, but the outcome had validated their decision to pursue the investigation, despite the obvious dangers. The convictions had sent a clear message that no one, regardless of position or reputation, was above the law when it came to betraying the public trust.